issue on the African scene, the politics of succession in Africa, the crisis of stability and power. How critical is this?
Police arrested 4 people for the violence in Johannesburg, while 8 others were arrested.
In Africa, the number of youths is growing rapidly, we can tell you that. In 2015, a total of 226 million youths aged between 15 and 24 lived in Africa, and that's accounting for 19% of the global youth population. By 2030, it is projected that the number of youths in Africa would have increased by 42%. And we ask the question, what does this represent for the continent of Africa? And is it an opportunity for growth, or is it crisis? Join us as we discuss all the facts, all the sides on the agenda today, and your show for Africa by Africans. I tell you, it's all about finding answers to all the questions and waking up the sleeping giant. Emenike Agu is my name. I'll be your host for today's edition of The Agenda, and I say a very warm welcome to another interesting and exhilarating edition. It promises to be wherever you are watching us around the world. You can join us on www.loveworldplus.tv or download our app from any part of the online stores, that is Love World Plus app. Okay, the agenda will return in a moment after this time out.
From Lagos
to Tokyo, from Dakar to Moscow,
we have all the world covered for you, no matter where you are.
Lover Plus News is at the heart of it all.
The prayers of many saints will be answered this time.
We bring you our perspective of stories behind the story.
So, and the Bible shows us how hyperinflation will set in. Jesus said, pray that you be counted worthy to escape all these things.
Join us, join us.
Join us on this station.
Many people long for success. They desire to do something with their lives, to make a difference in society, to become famous, or to become great. We all have the want to move from ordinary to extraordinary, to make the leap from good to great, to turn the seed of greatness that is in us into a fruitful field, and to fulfill the call of God upon our lives. From Reverend Dr. Chris Oyakhilome comes this new and riveting book, The Power of Your Mind. Do you want to do something extraordinary with your life? See, God has given you an excellent tool to use in your journey of greatness. It is called your mind. Learn how to walk in divine excellence through the power of a renewed mind. Get your copy of The Power of Your Mind today.
Okay, great to have you back. This is The Agenda. If you've just joined us, you are right on time. And on this edition, we are looking at Africa's growing young population. And we are asking that question, is it a blessing or a burden on the continent that is said to be the largest black population in the world? Okay, we told you that by 2030, it is projected that the number of youths in Africa would have increased by 42%. Already, Africa's most populous country, Nigeria, is expected to drive the boom in Africa with an expected population of 790.7 million by the year 2100. What should this represent for Nigeria and for Africa generally. Is it a growing challenge, that the young ones are growing by the day in numbers? And how does Africa harness her youthful dividend to maximize fully and to the fullest the potentials? Okay, all of these will be on the front burner on this program as we speak with our guests who we expect will be joining us. Dayo Fagbolu is a social analyst, social affairs analyst, and of course we shall also be going by Skype in the course of the program to speak with the co-chair Global Forum for Youth Policy and Center for Youth Participation Advocacy in Africa. His name, Dr. Chris Iyama. They will be looking at all of these issues today. There is something we talk about, the demographic transition for Africa. The economic resources for Africa will be hinged on it. And talking about the demographic transition, of course, that's why we pinched the program for this edition on the youths. Okay, world's youngest population. We're giving you the statistics as a background for now. World's youngest population is expected to grow by 65% in the year 2030, and that is a huge number. So what does this represent for the entire world? Let us tell you that Africa is expected to have the largest of the numbers by that year in terms of youth and youth involvement in the things around the world. Okay, and the factors we're going to be addressing today also include how the young ones, the youth, come through unemployment challenges ravaging African countries, leadership issues, and of course the demographic dividends in investing in the young ones in Africa, and particularly looking at Nigeria that has the largest number for now. So what does it portend to invest on the youths of Africa? What are the factors affecting youth development and integration, economic, politically, or economically? We shall be looking at all of this. And how does a nation making economic progress affect the youth and youth participation in nation building and all of that? Democratic governance, all of those will come into play. Political stability, how does it also affect the youth? All right, these and many more we shall be looking at on this very special occasion of the agenda. And don't forget that wherever you're watching us around the world, you will also be able to participate on the program when the studio phone-in lines come alive. Let's go for this report, and it will give us an interesting background to the entire topic, and that is how the young ones can secure a better future. Take a listen.
With 70% of Africa's population under the age of 30, the continent is presented with a great opportunity and possibly a great challenge. How does Africa harness her youthful dividend to be a blessing and not a burden becomes a challenge as well. Never has there been such a weighty responsibility on the shoulders of young people. But for Africa to reap the dividends of her youthful population that she has longed for, analysts say it is up to this generation to rise up and take the opportunities wherever they arise, whether in government or leadership at all levels, and not expect that such opportunities will be handed down.
I think we will need to correct, and maybe this can be corrected by the way we communicate. We need to, first of all, involve the youth. Those who have responsibility at different levels need to think about that, and really, because there is a lot we can tap, from them. But I think the young people should feel they have that responsibility to show up. They need to be there. They need to show up. They can't be there and say, no, they didn't call me, so... the responsibility should be shared, really. Yes, the young people, they are important. But you see, when you are important and say, okay, I'm important, But so somebody should recognize that and come to me. Then there is a problem.
By 2050, Africa will be home to 38 of the 40 youngest countries in the world, with median populations under 25 years of age. This will result in an estimated 10 to 12 million new people joining the labor force each year. These statistics clearly indicate that a considerable amount of investment must go into human development to unlock a demographic dividend.
You have so many young people, talented young people, educated young people, connected with the rest of the world, and now many of whom don't have, jobs, gainful employment, and so on. So I think that is a combination of potential advantage, but real challenges.
With the fourth industrial revolution upon us and the rate at which technology is advancing, it is critical that governments begin to invest more in youth inclusion and initiatives, create an enabling environment on the continent for youths to lead and drive innovation.
We must not allow fear to stand in our way. I have fought against white domination.
No, we are not satisfied, and we will not be satisfied until justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream.
We must remember that every one of us has something to give, something to contribute. Only Nigerians can help develop Nigeria. All that we require in our nation for our prosperity, our security, our progress will come from within us. And therefore, each one of us must be ready and willing to be a vital part of it.
Okay, great to have you back. If you've just joined us, this is The Agenda, and we are reaching you live from the studios of Love World Plus, wherever you're watching us around the world. And the topic remains youth development in Africa, a burden or an opportunity for the continent. Of course, you heard in that break Reverend Dr. Chris Oyakhilome, the president of the Love World Incorporated, speaking about nation development. And you heard him there say explicitly that only Nigerians can develop Nigeria. And of course, that also takes us straight into Africa. Only Africans, know where it pinches them. Africa has got to take the bull by the horn to develop Africa, especially the youths and the young ones. Earlier, before the break, we listened to a report, and we heard the president of Rwanda speaking also about the youth in Africa. And I tried to quote him there. He said, the young people are important, very important, but they should not sit back waiting for opportunity to come locate them because they think they are important. So they just sit back and do nothing, waiting for opportunity to come locate them. And he says the young people should come out with their potentials and their skills and be counted. Responsibility should be shared. That's quoting Paul Kagame, the president of Rwanda. Okay, while he is speaking, another president on the other side in Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari, once rattled the nation and of course the world when he declared the youth of Nigeria lazy. All of these form basis for discussion today. And I'm joined by social affairs analyst who's a friend in the house. Great to have him in the studio, Dayo Fabulu. Nice to have you.
Thank you very much.
Welcome. Welcome. You and I are in this category, the youths.
Well,
aren't we? Am I going to ask you to define who a youth is?
It's a nice way to put it. Yes, we are young.
You and I are there.
True.
All right.
True.
How about youth development in Africa?
Yes.
When we speak youth development in Africa, we are always constantly reminded about the growing population of the young ones in Africa more than anywhere else.
Yes.
And the question we're asking, is it an opportunity for the continent or is it a burden?
In my opinion, it's just like looking at two sides of a coin. Depending on how you flip the coin, you get specific results. We talk about problem solving from a specific perspective. We say, look, the ability to master your environment, to overcome your environment is what makes you a success. And of course, your inability to manipulate your environment makes you a failure. It's the same thing with age. I mean, for the youth, we all understand that they represent the future of any society, any culture, any nation. And what is standing there is basically a potential and nothing more. It's just a potential. The question is how you flip the coin. Like I said, if you flip it right, you find that that potential is developed and it evolves into strong, strong resources. At the moment, we can't say that in specific. We're still fiddling with the coin, trying to see what side is going to land up and what side is going to land down.
Has it been flipped?
No, it hasn't been flipped. That's what I'm trying to say.
Been flipped.
But currently, I mean, we're looking at the coin and we have it's the wrong side up. That's how I put it. We're looking at a coin that has a wrong side up. And basically what we need to do is find a way to master how we're going to flip the coin in such a way that it lands on the surface that we want. And these are the arguments I would make. Youth. When you describe the youth, you must understand that they are inheritors of a culture.
Absolutely.
They are inheritors of a process. They are also inheritors of knowledge. They can only be as good as what they inherit. The processes, the culture, and the society in which they inherit their values. So if they inherit the wrong values, we're just going to go into a spiral, a chaotic spiral. But of course, if they inherit the right values, it will change, it will create a dynamic change. I say this all the time. I think the starting point, one, is the church, where, I mean, over the years, we have seen how the church has influenced society, government, I mean, all over the world, has established moral standards and ethical values. I think this is a very important starting point for the youth. Knowing God, having a God-fearing standard and conscience. I think it's the most important thing. That's the starting point. The next point will be, we are driving towards a knowledge economy. That means where the economy does not evolve in its knowledge structures, it becomes redundant, myopic, or outdated, which will leave us with a batch of people that cannot compete effectively universally. It's a global world, we all know that. I mean, the standards are basically the same. What I mean by the standards are the same is the standards are set, the bar is set. You either meet it or you fall behind. So the question is, how are we going to tackle the knowledge, the upcoming or the incoming knowledge systems, knowledge economy, knowledge structures? Because these are things we have to build. If we hand over the wrong structures to them, there's not much they can do. And I give a good example. When I was growing up, I went to a government college in Ibadan. We had all the resources. We had a metal workshop, a woodworking workshop. I mean, we had a technical drawing workshop. We had science labs. We were well grounded. A lot of the knowledge we acquired then, I still use today. Now the question is, what happened to those that came after us? It's very important that the youth must inherit a rich culture, a rich form of knowledge, and a rich society. We can't hand them dregs and expect anything to come out of it. It's impossible.
Just before you walked into the studio, there was a report, and that report had a professor, American University, and also the president of Rwanda. I give you what he said. He said the young people are important, very important, but they should not sit back, waiting for opportunity to locate them. They should come out. They should make themselves count. Responsibilities should be shared. You know why I took you back to that?
Yes.
Is because you've said a lot of things that are a little bit scary. You said we are holding a coin on the wrong side.
Right.
And I asked, have you flipped the coin? Because you said
it hasn't been flipped yet.
It hasn't been flipped yet. Now you also said the young ones, are inheriting a culture. If they inherit the wrong culture, there is a problem.
Right.
All right. And then you also spoke about, knowledge economy, and I begin to ask myself, where is the place of the youth in all of this, that you have said? That's why I took you back to what Paul Kagame
I will
said.
I will answer you very strictly.
Marry these two together. The youth should not sit back and wait.
In the scripture, have you noticed that when the Bible talks about the elderly people, one person dreams dreams, one person has visions. Now, you must understand that there's a correlation.
Absolutely.
Yes. Now, it's the same thing. You see, the youth are strength, their energy, their hope. Yes? But the adults possess knowledge, they possess wisdom. Now, it's a vehicle, a brand new vehicle that has no tires. If you take all that the youth has, their energy, right, their strength, their hope, and they cannot match it with any form of knowledge, they will be driving a fast car without any wheels. And that's what I'm saying. We must speak to the situation coordinately. The youth have a responsibility. They have a responsibility to learn. That's what they have, the responsibility to learn, to push boundaries with hope, to experiment, to go where no man has gone before. But the knowledge they need to go that far has to be handed to them. It's no option. We must leave a sound legacy for them to continue. And that's what I'm saying. You see, what the youth have, like I've explained, is their strength, their hope, the energy they have to push their boundaries. But, I mean, you can push your boundaries in the wrong direction. For instance, we could just say, let's legalize cannabis, for instance. Now,
that's the wrong direction.
That's the wrong direction. But on the other hand, we could say, you know what? Let's build the first car factory, and let's make it solar powered for Nigeria. Well, we could say that's the right thing. It's sustainable. It takes us into the future. There's technology. There's engineering. So what I'm saying here is that for them to do anything with their lives, starting point is we have to hand over a structure that is sound for them to build on, a foundation of some sort. Let me add a little bit to it before you interject. Now, you must understand that all of us have a value system. We've seen our fathers, the men, they hold up their head with dignity. Even when they don't have, they say, you know what, it is well. We have learned these things from them. We have learned to believe. We have learned faith. Now, even the Bible says, faith is a condition in which you learn and you learn by hearing the word of God consistently. So learning itself in any form is a continuum. So for them to inherit anything, those before them must set a precedent. If they don't, what we will see is something, the equivalent of a revolution. There'll be bloodshed, and it doesn't change the fact that they will have blood on their hands. That's why I agree it's a joint responsibility, but at the moment, it is our responsibility to prepare their futures.
You know, I could go on listening to you. I could go on listening because it's really, really intriguing, you know, trying to juxtapose the place of the youth among all of these things that you're saying. Because I said to you that it's really scary. Look, you know, when you put all of this together to reality.
Let me interject again.
Before we get into the topic.
How far can a 60-year-old man run? How far?
How old is the president of Nigeria?
Okay, that's a different.
You see where I'm going?
No, that's
why it's scary.
You see, no, you're making a mistake now.
Please correct me.
I will correct you there.
Please go ahead.
You see, as you age, like I said to you, one of the key things with age is knowledge.
Absolutely.
Which we describe as the application of knowledge. Sorry, wisdom, which is the application of knowledge.
Wisdom.
Now, the aged, like I said, have a responsibility to apply that wisdom. So there's a place for everybody. There's a place for the youth. I mean, there's a place for the aged. You see, that's the mistake we make in Nigeria. We say,
Dio.
Yes.
Dio, Nigeria is a peculiar case.
Yes.
I like to draw inferences from Nigeria's situation.
Yes.
There was a time a president of this country, as a matter of fact, the serving president of this country was almost bundled into signing into law the Not Too Young to Run bill.
Yes.
And, you know, started defining Not Too Young to Run bill. My case here is, and my point here is, most Nigeria or most any African country gets to a situation where they have to make a law to say, hey, you are not too young to run. Isn't that bad inheritance that you also spoke about, where even the elderly doesn't want to hand over, as you are saying, they must hand over, and they must hand over good values. Now, what in Africa, they don't want to hand over to the youth, and they say, hey, you are too young to run.
We have a peculiar problem in Africa, and which, I mean, we've seen all over the world. There's nothing wrong with an old president. There's nothing wrong with a young president. There's nothing wrong with an old politician or a young politician. Like I said to you, it's the synergy.
Synergy?
Yeah, it's the synergy between the youth and the aged. Of course, there's a key thing you have mentioned. I mean, the aged should know when to step down.
Absolutely.
Right. I'm not going to start sprinting 100 meters with a young person and say, I want to represent Nigeria in 100 meters.
At 70?
Yes, I mean, it's ridiculous. Yeah, that's my point. But if it's a question of, I mean, attending debates, if it's a question of, you know, attending meetings where certain decisions have to be taken based on aged wisdom, knowledge structures have been built over centuries, where we're going to talk about Cicero, we're going to talk about Aristotle, coming into modern times. The man that is best suited for that situation is a man that has moved to the hierarchy of knowledge and understands the structure.
Okay, let's get into the topic proper.
Yes.
And the topic proper really is youth development.
I understand that.
Developing the youth. Is it a burden or is it an opportunity for Africa?
It's an opportunity. You've mentioned it. It's the keys. It's always an opportunity. Anytime things can work well, we'll refer to it as an opportunity. Of course, we need to be positive. You know, we need to have a positive attitude to life. But the question is, We must give the youth something to do.
Something to do.
That's it.
Let me give you these statistics. In 2015, 226 million youths aged 15 to 24 lived in Africa. That accounted to 19% of the global youth population.
Right.
And it is projected that by 2030, that's just roughly 10 years away, 10 years away, the number of youth in Africa would have increased by 42%. And Nigeria is reputed to having the largest collection of this number.
Now, those are scary statistics.
Very scary.
But the point is, we know there is a problem and we know now. So why aren't we dealing with it? These things are systemic. We know in a few years' time, we're currently at 90% of the youth population of the world. We know we're going to increase to about 23 or 24 in the next few years. The bottom line is, what are we doing about it? What are we doing about our schools, our cultural systems, our societies? How are we imbibing the right values? Like I said, everybody has a role to play.
Everybody.
The churches in particular. Now, the youth will take their lessons from us. And honestly, they represent our future. The energy that is required to drive into the future comes from them. I mean, the strength, the dreams, to dream the impossible things as we see them, remains with them. So we have a choice.
We have a choice.
We can either harness their resources now and harness them properly, because eventually we will benefit from it. Now, let me try and explain that to you. In economics, you find out that within a certain age bracket, they are the ones that drive the productivity machines of countries.
Absolutely.
So let's just assume, for the sake of our discussion, that it's between the ages of 18 and maybe like 40 to 50. That means that all the people within that age bracket, all of them, are providing resources for the aged, the elderly, 50 and above, 50 to 100 or thereabouts, and the youth, the young ones, from ages 1 day to 18 years or thereabouts, yes? Now, we are dependent on them to drive the economy, to produce and make sure that we live in wealth. So the question is, these youth will be moving into that position in a few years' time.
In a few years' time.
Yes. So there's a need for us to prepare them for the position that they're moving into, like I said to you.
I'm going to go into the nitty-gritty of preparing the youth.
Yes.
But let's just tell our viewer that the phone lines will come alive at this time. Join the discussion, join the conversation, and the topic is right here on your screen. Youth development in Africa, a burden or an opportunity? And let's talk about harnessing the full potentials of the African youth. I have here in the studio Dayo Fagbolu, social affairs analyst, and some things he's been saying, I said to him, also scary. But let's look at this. This year's International Youth Day had its theme, engagement for global action, youth engagement for global action.
Right.
And we're looking at engaging idle youths. You will agree with me that Africa's economy has left quite a large number of the African youth idle.
Yes, you're right.
Jobless, out of school, and into crime, into Yahoo, the one we call Yahoo.
That's right.
That's 419, advanced field fraud, into political thuggery. And they are left out of nation building. They are into all sorts of vices and crime, drugs and all of that.
Right.
And we are looking at active engagement of the youth. And I told you, let's get into the nitty-gritty. You know, yes, it's clear that the youth need to be engaged, but they are not doing that in Africa. Youth in governance, how many? Youth out of school, roaming the street, how many? Youth jobless, how many? Speak to the African government. What do we do to engage this youth?
For starters, you see, I've always said this, that the British left us with a legacy of what I would call let's call it slavemanship.
Slavemanship.
Yes. And what I mean by that is they have designed us specifically to feed successful systems. They have left us with a legacy of an unsuccessful structure. And I'll explain that the best way I can. There are two core elements required for innovation. And you must understand that innovation is the key to any form of development.
I agree.
Innovation in the church, innovation in society, innovation in schools, innovation in government. Everything rattles around innovation. Now, there are two core components that make innovation. And what the British have done for us is they ensured that we had what you call the explicit forms of learning. Now, explicit form of learning is your degree, where you go into school and you learn the theoretical propositions that enable practical things. But the understanding of the practice of what you do is seriously lacking. That's why one of the best professions that Nigerians have gotten into is things like medicine, like law, where it's a practice-based learning system. Now, the bottom line is they have left us with an educational system that is redundant. It can't help the youth.
Can't help the youth.
It cannot help the youth because it's purely explicit. As an explicit learner, all you can do is contribute to explicit learning. The practice in itself, you do not understand. You need a core element, which is called tacit learning. Tacit learning involves the tradition of our forefathers, the way things were done over the years. Now, they have wiped out those structures from beneath us completely.
We're talking government here.
Yeah,
we're talking government.
Now, you see, it's everything. First, they have left us with a structure that doesn't work. Now, we have leaders that have inherited a structure which doesn't work, and they do not understand in totality that it doesn't work. It's designed for failure.
What is the place of private sector, I ask?
The private sector is...
I know you are.
Yes.
I can single you out as one of those in the private sector.
Look, I can tell you very interesting things. The private sector is aggressively driving an agenda. But you must understand that these people in government are our brothers. They are cousins, our nephews, our families. Look, the influences of society on each other is very dynamic. I mean, I give you a silly conversation I had with somebody once. And I said, but this is not right. A particular person in government was insisting that the wrong thing must be done. The person I was having this conversation with is a member of my family, and I said, look, this is wrong, it's not right. And the person said, look, hold on 1 second. And the person sends a text, and I see a reply that comes back and says, just do it for the sake of doing it.
And what does that mean?
It's a moral dilemma. You see, you are trying to exclude government from the people. The people are the government, and the government are the people.
Absolutely.
They are our family members, they are friends, they are nephews, nieces. The bottom line is, society itself has to engage. Look, if we keep pestering each other, like when I pestered this person, the person said, you know what, let me send a message. I mean, which the person would not have sent on a normal day.
On a normal day.
Now, we need to consistently put in pressure. Like I said, political pressure, social pressure.
From the private sector.
Yes, from the private sector. That's all the private sector can do. Of
That's
course,
all they can do.
Driving their own agenda.
Exactly.
Yes, but you see, you must understand, we have people like Dangote driving their own agenda. Of course, in his own way. We have Otedolas. Everybody's driving an agenda in private practice. We have all of these people doing things. We have factories all over the Ikeja industrial area doing all kinds of things, producing material that we use for industry.
Dio,
we cannot say the private sector is not working. That's the point. The question is, they need to move to the next level. Yes.
So that they can be seen as
working.
It's
a full engagement where students spend their holidays, spend time working, actually doing the physical work.
We're going to take another look at another video that talks about demographic transition. But before we do that, we're looking at how important the youth is, in including youth governance and nation building. Let me give you an example taken from 2019 elections in Nigeria. Out of 82.3 million voters collected by INEC, only about 29.3 million voters did accreditation. Now, which represented an abysmally low 35.6% of the voting population. As a matter of fact, at the end of the exercise, the total number of voters cast dropped to 28.6 million, while the total number of valid votes cast also dropped to 27, it just keeps dropping, to 27.3 million votes. And that implied that 33.1% of eligible voters elected the president as at that time. Now, put it side by side what I'm going to say to you now, the impact of the media.
Right.
What I just said to you is youth participation in bringing up leaders, in choosing who a leader would be. Definitely, as you said, the people with wisdom. We will agree.
Yes.
Including
on that. Yeah, at least. Yes.
We will agree. Okay. Now, let's take it to the media and try to evaluate youth participation also and the impact of youth through the media in a society. The host of a popular youth reality show, you and I know that show, once announced that one season of the program set a groundbreaking record of 240 million votes.
Right.
This is to say that the season raked in 7.2 billion naira from votes alone, going by the cost 30 naira per vote.
Right.
Now, it's a youth-oriented, youth-skewed program,
right,
popular in Africa, popular in Nigeria. Now, take the election, Nigerian election, and take the media impact. Now, it tells me that the future of every nation simply lay with the youth. Economically,
we can agree,
otherwise.
We can agree on that. The question is,
why are we not harnessing it?
Well, I just told you. I always like going to scripture. It's exciting.
Mm.
The Bible talks about the people perishing
For lack of knowledge.
Yeah. I mean, some part of the scripture refer to it as vision. You know, look. You see, you must ensure a continuum.
Mm.
No child is born. I mean, apart from Jesus Christ, no child is just, placed on this earth and has no source or has no, offshoot, from something. They come from people.
They come from people.
And you must understand that as a child grows up between the ages of 0 to 10, the child barely knows anything. He acquires those values. Now, the child knows that a smell is bad because he sees his parents doing this. He really doesn't know the difference. It's just a smell. The question of whether it's an awful smell or not. So we talk about acquired tastes, acquired smell, everything is acquired. Now it's referred to as a mental programming.
Mental program.
Yes, that's what it is. And basically, it's a combination of your values, your rituals or rites, your practices, and your heroes. You acquire them as you go along the line. The only thing, like I said, that we can leave for these children is to ensure that they walk a path that is smooth to the point where the decisions they need to make will be theirs to make and they can make it right. And that's why I'm saying, look, you see, in Nigeria, it's a sensitive matter. Because already, we have led this nation astray. We have misrepresented a lot of issues. Like I told you, for generations, we've boasted in our lawyers and our doctors, our professors. It's like a brand new car, like I said, but it has no wheels. You need practice because that's where knowledge is transferred. Hard knowledge is transferred.
I agree.
I use very subtle examples. If you know how these things that these women make in Ibadan, it's called amala. It's made from either a plantain flour, dry plantain flour,
or cassava.
or yes. Now you see, It's one of the most difficult things to make, meals to make, because you have to sieve it. You have to know the right temperature. You have to know when to boil it, when to add water. It is a science, and it is also an art. Now, you need to transfer knowledge. That's how hard knowledge, that kind of knowledge is. You need to transfer it from generation to generation. A woman says, look, I want to eat a Dikain Kong. And the question is, how is it made? Everybody knows it's a combination of periwinkles and some kind of particular vegetable and a mixture. It has a specific taste. Now, the only way that child is going to learn is not by reading a book. Because there's more to reading the book. The child must taste.
I'm trying very hard to make a good sense of all that you're saying.
Yes.
I don't know if I would be right to say that I summarize all of this to say that youth development in Africa, governments of African nations are only paying lip service.
Well, so that's the bottom line. We know that. Sorry. Yes. Yes, this is a fact. I don't think they even know what it means. Like I said, you see, to do things, you must have an understanding in yourself. A lot of these people either do not have an understanding or are pushing a selfish agenda for their own survival.
For their own survival?
Yes, or for the survival of their own children. You see, in a system where everything is mediocre, anybody can aspire to anything. But in a competitive system, you find out that excellence is required to move to the next level.
Absolutely.
Currently, what they're designed, or what has been designed for us, is a system where excellence is not encouraged. Now, this does not play well for the youth in any way at all. Yes, the youth themselves, that's the contribution they can make. They can drive an agenda now, either in protests, either in resistance of any sort, to say they have had enough, that they know we're going in the wrong direction, and it has to stop. That is the only thing I think they can do at the moment.
I agree. I agree with you. It's a whole lot, to ignore the youths.
It's even unrealistic.
They say they are the leaders of tomorrow.
Right.
Because you also said the elderly has to bequeath, to the youth.
Yes.
There's something that I want you to look at. Talks about demographic transition.
Yes.
That word, demographic transition, and planning for the future of the youth in Africa. Take a listen at this report, and we will be back right after that.
Africa's growing population of young people is an economic resource that could bring positive change to the continent's economic future. With proper planning and investment in its youth, African countries could experience what is known as a demographic dividend. This happens when the working population outnumbers children and the elderly. This results in economic resources being freed up as the labor force grows faster than the population that is dependent on it, which could then lead to accelerated economic growth. Africa is the world's youngest continent. While other regions are aging, Africa will still be mostly young, with approximately 65% of the population under the age of 30 in the year 2030. Central for achieving a bright future is investing in people through health, education, and jobs. Africans can also take ownership now of their demographic transition, the change from high birth and death rates to low birth and death rates, by reducing mortality, investing in education, and hastening the empowerment of women. In most African countries, a demographic transition is just beginning as more children survive their 5th birthdays and people live longer. Africa is now entering this window of opportunity. With a faster decline in family size, African countries can realize the economic benefits of the demographic dividend over the next several decades.
Okay, thank you so much. The World Bank report there, placing Africa at an advantage position just because of the youths. as we saw in that report. It says when the working population outnumbers that of children and the elderly. So that population apparently is the youth. What did you make of all of that?
Well, like I said, this is a conversation into potential and nothing more. Because you must understand that just as we are going to jostle for the resources, from the youth, the whole world also needs them. The whole world is also jostling for them. Young doctors, young professionals. And you can see the rate at which they are migrating. So yeah, you can excite yourself and say the youth will fill in the positions in future in Africa, but also they can fill in positions all over the world. Absolutely. So all it does is, as far as I'm concerned, is there's a possibility that the quality of life will improve, not necessarily on the continent, but in the world. Because they will feed, like I told you, they prepared us to feed a system.
Would World Bank be wrong to project that Africa in the year 2030 will be in the best position around the world to benefit from the youth population?
I said it earlier on, that there's a particular age, which is the working age, which runs the productivity of a country, which ensures productivity. Now, if that gap is weak, that's why you see countries asking you to migrate, to come over. Now, in the case of Africa, this is not the case. It's a perfect balance. They will step into the right position. But to do that, there's still a requirement to step in with the right tools. That's why they said they can. There's a possibility that they would.
Daya, you just used the word I've been waiting for. The right tools.
Yes, they can. The right tools.
All right, we're winding down on the show.
Right.
Talking about the right tools, you talk about governance of a nation and how they place their youth, and where actually they place their youth. Let's talk about Nigeria. Let's take Nigeria for an example. The president of the nation once declared her youth lazy, and it caused a whole lot of rumpus. President Muhammadu Buhari says the youth of my nation are lazy. Now, he said they should sit and do nothing and get housing and get healthcare, and get education, everything free, everything free. Is that what being lazy means?
Well, you must understand that there's a question of perception also. You will give a descriptive on your understanding and on your perception. Now, in terms of perception, we all can look at an image from different directions. It's the case of the 6 blind men that went to touch the elephant, my favorite parable. And the one touched it on the side and said, it's like a wall. And the others touched the trunk and said, it's like a snake. President Buhari will only describe or give a descriptive of the youth of Nigeria from his own understanding.
From his own understanding.
I have kids. I refer to them as the youth. And these are brilliant kids. Computer engineers, accountants, and I'm not talking about people with just explicit forms of learning. They have tacit forms of learning. So look, it's his experience. Maybe, if he says the youth are lazy, he has children also.
So they are among those
evidently, he has seen the youth around him, and he said the youth around me are lazy. What he has not spoken to is the youth that he cannot see. And the ones I can see are hardworking. I know kids that wake up 5 o'clock in the morning, go to work, go to school during the day, pay their way through school.
Absolutely.
How do you call a man like that?
Absolutely. Having said all of this, in summary,
yes.
What do you think are basically the challenges facing the youth in Africa?
I think for starters, we need to speak positively to them. Like I said to you, we need to have a conversation, a positive conversation with them. We have to keep reminding them that the burden of the future lies with them, for starters. Of course, I think we have a responsibility also to ask them to insist that we create the kind of future, the kind of society that would be worth looking to. And we should do it now. I think they should insist. I think they should go up in arms. What I mean by that, not in the physical sense, but to raise a row, to create a sin and say, look, you know what, you need to do the right thing. I think that's one of the things they can do. Because we have an emotional attachment to them, a cultural attachment, a societal attachment to them. They should be able to tell us to do the right thing. But for them to know the right thing, we must also have a learning process. And for me, it's culture, it's society, it's the church, it's bodies that have responsibilities to moral and ethical values. That's the point at which we need to start. Then it will roll into government and everything else. That's how it works.
Thank you so much. Dayo Fabolu, social affairs analyst. We could go on. I could go on listening to your analysis. Absolutely apt.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much
It's a pleasure.
for sharing the program with us. We will bring you back because such topics cannot be exhausted at one sitting. Thank you so much for coming.
It's a pleasure.
And also to thank you out there for being part of the program. It returns on Tuesday, same time, right here live on Love World Plus. Wherever you're watching us around the world, I tell you, we take issues around Africa and deal with it, on in-depth level with very, very in-depth analysis. And it's been the youth development in Africa. Is it a burden when you talk about the population or an opportunity? And we've been enlightened on the show today that it is indeed an opportunity. Only if the governments of the world will realize this, governments of Africa will realize this, governments of Nigeria particularly will realize this and harness the potentials of the youth. Let's leave you on this note. The president of the African Development Bank, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, speaking on what constitutes his #1 priority. Find out why. Emenike Agu is my name. Thank you so much for watching. Let's do it again on Tuesday. Stay blessed and keep praying for the nations of the world. Bye for now.
I have said with the population of young people that we have today, of well over 320 million people, that means that the African Development Bank, my #1 constituency right now, is actually the youth, because we have to create a lot of jobs for them. It makes no sense to me, and it breaks my heart to see young people fall off, desperate for life and gasping for air in the Mediterranean Sea. That's not the future Africa needs, and that's why we've got to make sure that we push for structural transformation of Africa's economy, drive a lot of investments in, but make sure whatever we do, we take the hundreds of millions of our people out of poverty and create massive amount of jobs for our youth.
Issue on the African scene, the politics of succession in Africa, the crisis of stability and power. How critical is this?
Police arrested 12 people for the violence in Johannesburg, while 8 others were arrested.